Today we have with us Mr. Srikanth Katuri, the CIO VP for South Asia at Iqvia. A very warm welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us at CXOTV.
Thank you.
First of all, sir, we would love to hear about yourself and how your journey has been so far. So if you can share some highlights of your journey with our CXOTV audience.
Sure. So I'm Srikanth Katuri, and I'm currently the CIO VP for South Asia region. So I manage the Iqvia IT initiatives for the South Asia region, which comprises of the complete transformation that happens in this part of the world. And it includes the region, India region, alongside Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. So I have got four geographies, close to 13 sites and 24,000 workforce. A pretty large, footprint of Iqvia is in India, and I actually drive the strategy, the digital strategy and transformation strategy for the region. Have been a part of Iqvia for close to 19 years out of my 23 years of experience in the industry. Started off with product development for a couple of years and more into banking and financial services. And now I'm in the life sciences industry. Had spent some good number of years in Iqvia till now, and have had some significant number of pages in the success of Iqvia in this part of the world. But overall, I think we are in the most exciting times where things are happening to transform by the minute, not by months or years. It's changing by the minute. So I think it's one of the most exciting times in the history of mankind, I guess, where things are changing phenomenally and enabling people, communities, and geographies. So excited to be here.
Definitely, we agree on the fact that, with every passing month and year, we are seeing such huge amount of transformation that are taking place over the industry. So to begin with, the life science industry has made a remarkable advancement in the recent years. So what do you consider to be the most significant trends driving this transformation which we were talking about and the innovations that are happening within the sector?
Correct. So if I were to talk about trend or the actual industry trends that are transforming the life science industry, I think there are a couple of trends that I would like to mention, but those trends are more relevant in the post-COVID world that we live in for two reasons. One is that in the pre-COVID stage, a lot of things were termed as possibilities, but never explored to the extent that they should have been. But COVID actually has acted as a force multiplier to a lot of industries, not just life sciences, to explore the art of possible. So some of the key trends that have actually impacted the life science industry in the post-COVID scenario is that everything has become very personalized. I mean, it's become hyper-personal. So two key trends that have changed in the post-COVID world are personalized and precision medicine has changed phenomenally. There's a huge progress there. And then use of AI and machine learning and other advanced gene editing techniques have come into the limelight. And I think one other trend which perhaps we are seeing more often in the post-COVID world is about the increased use of telemedicine and remote patient monitoring. And this will continue because of the fact that there are new technologies like 5G, which have been very pervasive in this part of the world. And the fact that these have worked as templates during the COVID period where we used to have doctors consulting remotely through video, like how we are conversing with you, or somebody being monitored remotely from a hospital site, but the patient is actually in a remote location. So these trends will continue and they will catalyze the advancement in overall disease diagnosis, treatment, and prevention. And not everything need to be in the hospital backdrop. Some things can happen always in a more personalized, effective way, even if the patient and the healthcare provider are remote. And that one of the templates that has made it work and it's working as I speak is COVID, post-COVID world, or during the COVID time, there were so many use cases where things have actually been successful. So sum up, personalized medicine and precision medicine is one trend. The other trend is about telemedicine and remote patient monitoring. These two trends will continue and they'll advance further for most of the disease diagnosis in future, including treatment and prevention.
Absolutely, we agree on that. Post-COVID, we have seen how remote culture and how technology has leveraged this entire process. And this concept of online consultations as well, it has gained. So definitely we agree on that. And as we are talking about this technological advancement, data is again very crucial. And as data becomes increasingly essential in this life science industry, so we would actually like to know that how companies are leveraging and advancing analytics as well as big data resources to gain valuable insight journey.
So I think so. Big data is not something new. I mean, it's always been there. Analytics was always there, even in the old world. However, because of the COVID, and I know I'm referring too much of COVID here for the simple reason that world also has transformed as two parts. Earlier, it was BC and AD, before Christ and after Christ. But now it's all it's the world which is pre-COVID and post-COVID, and touch wood, we are all there in the post-COVID world, and we are alive, and we're really pleased to be alive because of the fact that there have been some new vaccines that have come into the patient world, and they've actually helped us get better, and we are here talking to each other, right? So it's a big deal. However, the overall timeline or the process of getting a drug developed and offered to a patient has actually shrunk during the COVID. I mean, not that it did not go through the usual grind, but generally speaking, whatever life cycle, whether it's product development in the software world or drug development in the general world, based on industry trends, if it takes X number of years in the past, now it's actually extra accelerated using advanced analytics and big data, and that actually has helped accelerate the overall development process because we have new patient treatment plans. We have the targets have now been able to be identified quickly. Big data has actually helped identify the target population much better than what it was earlier because there's a predictive analysis that you can do, and interestingly, you can also foresee some of the disease outbreaks or any kind of adverse events advance because of the fact that there is predictive analysis, and you have enough data even in the post-COVID world, where during the COVID of 1 or 2 years we have collated a lot of data. So that's also going to help us amplify the opportunity that is already there in the advanced analytics space and big data by enabling our ability to see outbreaks in advance and also identifying the possibilities of adverse potential adverse events. So I think it's amplified the whole opportunity. Earlier it was all there, but now it's amplified much more than what it was earlier.
Much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And people have started to recognize the fact that just by having big data is not going to help. We need to have the wrapper of analytics on the top of big data to kind of look at what's happening. And COVID actually has helped most of the people, whether they are conversant with big data or not, that they are conversing with analytics or not, they're able to understand that analytics is what is going to help them succeed in the future for companies. So it's much more relevant now in the new world of post-COVID ecosystem.
Right. So a while ago, in fact, we were talking about the advancement in technologies as well. So the life science industry is experiencing rapid advancement in terms of data analytics, which we mentioned, and as well as AI. Like today's peak of the topic is like AI and digital health solutions. So if you can share with us some insights into how organizations are leveraging these trends to empower the healthcare organization and improve not just the organization, but also the patient outcome.
Yeah. So again, we always have had this data analytics, AI, and digital health was always there. I mean, when you talk about engaging with patients, and they were like, there are a lot of ways in which you engage with patients, and even if you see the generally when you go to a hospital, there are so many apps, even on Google Play Store, where you try to book an appointment with a doctor. I mean, I'm sure you must be already seeing that. But what has happened in the recent 2 to 3 years is that that's actually amplified much more in a couple of ways. One way in which it's amplified is that earlier we may not have thought through to that extent that we are thinking through today on the wearable devices side of things. Because if you understand the overall lifestyle pattern has changed, people have become much more aware of their health engagement with healthcare providers, and they've become much more technology savvy during the COVID. If you remember, people were talking about, a layman was talking about oximeters and wearable devices and all of that, right? Even in the pre-COVID world, it was there. But post-COVID, people have started to converse in the medical terms about some of the devices like oximeters, wearable devices. Hey, do you know, for example, certain parameters like, oxygen levels have to be this, your breathing has to be this, blah, blah, blah. So in the post-COVID world, you've seen so many new ways in which, patients are engaging with HCPs, and even doctors are engaging with patients in terms of monitoring their upkeep, if you may want to call, be it, your whole healthcare management plan in the form of doing some exercises, or using some telemedicine platforms to talk to your patients, or getting an appointment with your doctor, or real-time patient monitoring where you're putting a probe on your body, and then somebody else is monitoring it from across the planet. So that's actually become much more effective in the new world, because you're using the new AI and the digital health platforms, which have just been there but not been exploited to the extent they should. And obviously, the art of possible has opened up new set of companies that are doing this kind of work, new set of startups that have started to do this kind of work. Earlier, it was not the case. Earlier it was all about enterprise AI, enterprise data analytics, but now it's all become like endpoint solutions where anything can happen on a mobile. You can have applications that can talk to anyone in the world using your mobile with a small digital health app, and you can do a lot of things with that. Earlier it was not the case. So to sum up, the advancements have become much more. The overall digital health ecosystem has increased phenomenally. The number of companies that are enabling wearable devices, be it biosensors, be it biomedical related equipment, all of that has increased in the post-COVID world. What was thought to be not possible, this is not a gray area. This is a gray area. Maybe it's not something that we should exploit to start with, is now become art of possible, where everybody's starting to talk more about that. So it's changed phenomenally, and thereby what's going to impact industries, the overall process of the discovery of drugs, development of new patient treatment protocols, the overall patient diagnostics space is all going to change, and it's already changed. And if you were to typically go to a hospital today, I think the way in which the whole patient journey is happening in the post-COVID world is completely transformed compared to what it was in the pre-COVID world. So overall, I think there's a massive change.
So I think rightly pointed out, and I would definitely agree. Like one of the things that I would like to put forward out here is that post-COVID, again, we have seen the amount of confidence that people have gained in terms of relying on technologies. Earlier, we could have never thought, like, without reaching to a hospital or a medical care institution, we would actually get the consultants now that, or maybe the what are the things that we have to procure, or at the same time, when you mentioned about oximeter, what should be the level? People have got more aware about their health and what are the professional things in terms of these. I think absolutely it has amplified over just a very small amount of time span, and I think it's going to go
correct. To add to your point, even the telemedicine platforms, the concept of medicine being delivered using drones, the concept of medicine being delivered just like an e-commerce giant like Amazon delivering.
Absolutely,
you have companies delivering medicine, so that's never a possibility. And then the other thing is the number of platforms that have come into play in this part of the world based on what's happening in the India stack and the overall national health development vision and all of that. It's phenomenal, and it's changing by the day. And it is going to change phenomenally because more and more companies will create more platforms. It's going to be much more hyper personalized care than what it was in the earlier days. So it's all changing, and especially it's changing in this part of the world because We have very pervasive 5G that's there in almost every part of the country. There is pervasive broadband connectivity. There is very pervasive India Stack story that talks about access to the CoWIN app, which has got data. The government has opened up the APIs to the data. So obviously, product development will all happen in that space, much more than what it is now.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing that we would put forward right now is about how enterprises and the extensive domain expertise and how the big data resources contribute to providing actionable intelligence and strategic guidelines to its life science clients.
So I think this, from an enterprise standpoint, it has always been the case. I mean, there are a lot of enterprises with domain expertise were always there. They have extensive domain expertise, and the big data resources were always there. For example, you have the NHS, you have a lot of other big data, publicly available data sets that was there. And they were providing intelligence in the past. But the new trends that are actually happening and the opportunities that are happening are much more in the current state for two reasons. One is that with technologies like large language models or the recent developments in the AI/ML side of things, people are able to not just use the existing data sets. They can always use synthetic data, where you can ask, you can create synthetic data using the LLMs and perhaps look for trends and opportunities with the synthetic data. You don't need to actually have the real big data resources like how it was in the past, because LLMs have made that enabled, and in the recent past we've seen a lot of development in that space. So I think some of the key trends that are going to happen in the future from an enterprise standpoint is that it's not just going to use existing data sets, but it's also going to create new synthetic data where you can use AI/ML to exploit and perhaps at least understand what's going to happen in terms of trends and opportunities and things like that. Whereas that was not possible in the past, because we were only looking at one part of the available data and assuming that these are the only data sets that are available. But that's also changing. It need not necessarily be just the data set that are available. It could be data that is coming in from patients keying in some information that, hey, I use this, and I have had this. And again, this is in the light of, again, post-COVID world where people are openly talking to each other around, hey, I've used this, this is how I feel. And perhaps if that social mining happens now, where you have social mining aspect to that, to see without going much into the personal attributes, if you can just anonymize that and see what are the possible trends coming out of that mining, that will also give you some element of insight, right? It need not necessarily be that you'll go with the big data and do some analysis. It's also possible to do analysis based on the evidence that comes from real world information that comes in from different parts of the ecosystem. For example, I'll quote CoWIN. CoWIN is there, but CoWIN, you don't need to use CoWIN in its entirety. You can just use the insights that are coming from CoWIN to understand on what is the kind of demographics we are talking about, what is the kind of age that we're talking about, what are the kind of trends that are happening within the available data. That itself is massive. Enough. We imagine 1.4 billion people's data is there, and you exactly know. Though you will not exactly know, at least you can get some insights that, okay, this is how probably things will shape up. And by the way, trends need not be exact. It can at least give you some direction, right? Okay, this is the direction in which you can go and perhaps explore the opportunities. It need not be exact. It can at least give you some trends. And I think we should get out of the aspect of saying that in conformity that, hey, maybe this will happen or that will happen. We could always give probabilities that possibly this will happen, or possibly something else will happen. And you can put some probability to those trends. So it's all about multiple trends with some probabilities, so that people exactly know where to go for the trends.
I actually can remember, like, even during the days of COVID, like, normal people even used to get into this COVID portal just to analyze what's the current data, where is India lying, where is USA lying. So, yeah, I can definitely relate with that one.
I think one important point which we need to also take into account is that, basically it's helping you in strategic decision making, number one. Number two is you're able to optimize your overall operations. Even if you take a typical hospital chain or a healthcare chain, they are not doing the way in which they were doing earlier. Their operations is all changed. Most of them might be working from some remote location, but still optimization is happening in the operation side. And secondly, most important point is it's stimulating innovation. Earlier we never were innovating. We were always thinking that maybe this is the only possibility. But now people started to stimulate that innovation. Some people are setting up innovation hubs. Some people are setting up boiler rooms to kind of test how it all works. And I heard recently from somebody that, there is an incubation cell or something that's being created to understand how this will all shape up. So things are changing, and it will change further.
Right. So for the life science industry, how it operates, we have seen there have been high regulation in terms of its environment. So how are companies navigating the compliance and data privacy challenges while still leveraging the power of technology that we are witnessing to drive in the process?
So I think, obviously any change in the industry which will have new technologies coming in, it's not like suddenly we have now become cognizant of compliance and data privacy, right? It has always been the case. Industries like airlines industry and which are very sensitive, banking industry, which are very sensitive to this whole compliance and privacy. Same with life science industry. There's nothing unusually new. However, the regulations have changed now with the GDPR coming in Europe. It's been like 3-4 years or 5 years now, and then same with other nations, and especially in this part of the world, you have China, which has implemented the new data privacy law, and then India is in the main stream to get that out. And then obviously there is a engagement from the people to contribute to that whole data protection bill and all of that. However, the challenges were always there in terms of prioritizing adherence to these regulations and all of that. I think companies have now started to leverage more cybersecurity measures, and obviously the posturing has changed because it's a new world it's a new hybrid world where everybody is in every place. We don't know. I mean, for example, you do not know where I am sitting, and I do not know where you're operating from, right? So it's a new world where interactions are happening through technology, whether it's video or audio, and obviously you'll have to adapt to this new world. So first important thing that companies are trying to do is you need to navigate these compliance and data privacy challenges. First thing is your posture has to be reinforced. The earlier posture may not work. The same posture will not work. So obviously you'll have to reorient your posturing. Recalibrate is the right word, perhaps, to kind of adhere to the new regulations, number one. Number two, you'll need to be more aware of the fact that there is a important data privacy requirement that's come in subsequent to post-COVID world. It's become much more important now. Okay. And the third thing is obviously you'll need to have regular compliance checks and things like that. And most importantly, the last point is that you can't do all of this and say everything is fine and safe. You need to have the expertise inside as well as outside. So you need to collaborate and partner with certain industry bodies that actually manage globally, because we are in this problem together. We are not alone, right? And there are certain global companies like Verizon, which actually run regular, investigations, data breach investigations globally. So you can, then the data is available globally for everyone. You can always take that and posture yourself to align with that guidelines. big companies are doing this analysis regularly. There are monitoring centers that are globally there. And so that intelligence feed has always got to be there into the enterprises. And then obviously you need to, enable technologies, but you need to enable technologies in such a way that you're preserving the privacy, because obviously privacy is number one priority. So you can't just, implement something because it's available, and you need to implement it, but in a controlled manner, take advantage of the insights, but at the same time put the guardrails to ensure that you're not compromising on the privacy and compliance. So it's like a cohesive approach to the overall compliance and data privacy challenges, in terms of reorienting your posturing, reinforcing your internal controls, partnership with the industry bodies that are actually doing this for a living, and then also regular audits and compliance checks. And it's not like a one-time job, it's a continuous calibration of things, where we are going, how we are doing, and all of that. It's not just about controls and alignment to controls, but more about recalibrating every time in terms of your own controls, internal controls, policies, and then enforcing them regularly on a defined frequency. It can't be like once in a while you do it. It has to be done regularly with a defined frequency and discipline. Long answer short.
In your opinion,
Yeah, it's reposturing, recalibrating. That's perhaps my answer.
So, in your opinion, what are the emerging trends or technologies do you believe will have the most significant impact on the life science industry, and how is enterprises positioned to lead in adopting and harnessing these advancements?
I think definitely the future, at least the emerging trend is that I think definitely quantum computing is going to revolutionize industry, because earlier we used to have in the past computing as a big challenge, right? Because earlier we never used to have the powerful compute. Now computing is all available with companies like Google's of the world, which are able to compute complex, large-scale data like this. They can create simulations on the fly, right? So I think definitely the quantum computing will revolutionize the whole thing, where if something was taking 10x, now it's taking 2x time period. And that will actually accelerate the whole discovery process. And obviously, therapeutics will change. It's changing by the time I talk to you. Rare diseases are all being analyzed and all of that. But digital therapeutics is changing. Most importantly, the other thing is cell and gene therapies, tissue engineering. All that will have significant potential in the next 2-3 years. And obviously, you'll need to embrace all of this. You can't just be alone, and you'll be left alone if you don't embrace this. I think the future is all about simulations, complex simulations for getting new therapies using quantum computing, using technologies like cloud and quantum computing and large-scale simulations using quantum computing would be the future. That's something that you need to watch. And whoever is adopting to this new way of working, massive compute requirements that are there for simulating big data simulations, they will have to embrace this. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
So, quantum computing is going to be the future.
Yes, that will drive the whole process of drug discovery in future.
So, lastly, we would want to know like what is going to be the tech focus areas and priorities over the next 5 years to come?
I think, I think if you see the industry, I think somewhere I've seen that. I think we all know about personalized medicine, right? So I would think that the future is like how an Amazon or a Flipkart kind of companies are treating a consumer like you and me, where you're trying to buy something and there's a life cycle to get that delivered. You can exactly track what's happening. I think that's exactly the way in which a typical patient journey will happen, and you'll become like a healthcare consumer and you will adopt to personalized medicine with much more focus on hyper personalization, where everything about you is already known, just like how you are able to know the next purchase on Amazon. I think that's the future. Next 5 years, I think you'll have hyper personalization of medicine.
We'll be having more of like similar platforms like we have this time, like you have like Amazon, Flipkart. So similar portals will be able to access more.
For healthcare consumer, and I think the whole attitude of treating your patient will change from patient to consumer, perhaps a healthcare consumer, where you are consuming services from that layer, and you're like any other consumer of that particular healthcare layer, and then that will actually drive the whole trends and development of apps and the whole experience. It will all change. 100% will change in the next 5 years, and it's already changing. Hyper personalization is the way forward, and precision medicine also is changing. I've seen that a doctor remotely doing robotic surgery. I think this is already there, by the way. It's not like something which is going to come, and that will go leaps and bounds because there's so much change even in the robotics side of things. IoT is something that's changing. IoMT is coming in, Internet of Medical Devices. That's again another area where there'll be transformational change. So obviously that will all help in precision medicine also, where you put something here, a marker, a biomarker, and then a doctor can perhaps check and see what's happening. So that will all advance the therapeutic modalities of doing things. And then obviously cell and gene therapy will change. It's already there, but it will change more further. Then it will be very advanced, and already it's advancing. Digital health solutions will become much more in the next 5 years, at least from this part of the world. I think it's going to change phenomenally because India's stack is there. And then you will have much more robust. I'm being very, very honest here and optimist here, that there'll be much more robust data privacy and cyber security infrastructure globally, because obviously necessity is the mother of invention, right? So people are trying to understand the importance, and they will adapt to that. And most importantly, the adaptation will happen by partnerships and collaborations. It can't be done alone. We are in this together. I'm repeating that. So there'll be more partnerships, more collaborations to help drive that innovation, and there'll be innovation stimulation happening for the next 5 years, where, as I said, everything will change, including supply chains for healthcare services. So exactly like how I talked to you, the use case of Amazon and Flipkart, you'll have the whole supply chain change from start to end. If you're defining a patient journey, right, from where he starts to where he gets healthy and comes out of the diagnosis and disease prediction and being well, and coming out of being well, gets discharged and comes back home. All of that journey will be monitored, will be changing. It will become much more smoother, and that will transform the whole supply chain. It will not be like for example, when somebody is monitoring a particular patient. Earlier we used to have the patient call and take appointments and all that. So appointment laying out appointments and all of that is now almost like automated. However, there are certain things like, maybe you are in for a regular check of your, perhaps your cardiac test has to be done because we are seeing some changes in the rhythm, or perhaps something like your oxygen levels have gone down. Maybe we need to, that kind of changes will happen because of precision medicine, and the whole supply chain ecosystem will change, and companies will all come into together and perhaps link all of that, because today you do not know how your product is coming to your place from some part of the world through Amazon, right? You just look at channel and check.
Just do that.
It's phenomenal, and it will be phenomenal. So I'm very optimistic in that sense.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing such insightful knowledge. It was a great interacting with you. And I think it has been an insightful session for us, our CXOTV audience. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Urmi, and happy to have talked to you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your time, sir.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.